Welcome back to the channel. This will be the transfer tips for Game Week 14 with an extremely quick turnaround. There is a Tuesday deadline, so don't be caught out by it. And that's why I've got a lot of content headed your way today. Potentially a triple upload with the best wildcard squad and my team selection. And don't miss tomorrow's deadline stream where I'll be answering all your questions and condensing all the information, graphics, top 10 captains, you name it, into one podcast. The same goes for injury updates, team news, and much more. You can see the most transferred in players at this point of the game week, and Igor Thiago is top despite facing Arsenal this week. Foden, Timber, Munoz and Eze complete the top 5 with the likes of Rice, Fernandes, Chalobah and Voltemada in the top 10. A few other players I've talked about in my transfer tips and wildcard podcast throughout the season are also highlighted, like Bruno Guimaraes, Minter, O'Reilly, Mateta, etc. And a few others will be covered in today's video, and some of them are massive differentials who could be great purchases for your FPL squads. Like this video, subscribe to my channel, and also hit that notification bell so you're always up to date on my content, both FPL and UCL Fantasy, which I'll cover until the end of the season. And UCL Fantasy videos will return next week ahead of match day 6 with the Limitless and Wildcard squads, my team selection, and you guessed it, another deadline stream. Let's build all my social media platforms. There's my Discord server, Twitter, Instagram, and Blue Sky. You can become a patron or channel member by clicking the join button on YouTube or going to patreon.com/FPL Dylan for early access to my videos and many other perks. Join my FPL and FPL Challenge Leagues, and also Spotify. Leave a 5-star review, and that's another way of engaging with the content. But without further ado, let's jump straight into it. The game changer on my free hit was Phil Foden, who got 15 points against Leeds United in a 3-2 victory. He scored the winner in the dying embers of that game, and that takes his goal-scoring tally for the Premier League campaign to a respectable tally of 3, with 1 assist, 23 key passes, and 48 FPL points. The next 5 fixtures look promising for Man City. They're near the top of the fixture difficulty rating. They face Fulham away next, followed by Sunderland, Crystal Palace, West Ham, and Nottingham Forest. Only 2 of them are home fixtures, and there could be some banana skin games like Crystal Palace in that time frame. And in terms of Foden's underlying numbers, 22 shots in the Premier League season, with only 6 on target, 14 shots inside the box. The XG is 2.45, and the XA, expected assists, is 2.01, with 3 big chances and 2 big chances created. But I think Phil Foden could be a nice replacement for Antoine Semenyo and a few other midfielders like Ismail Assar, who could potentially be out until after AFCON when it comes to FPL. So Phil Foden only costs 8.1 million. He went up in price overnight, and the ownership is relatively low at 6.5%, but this obviously would have been higher on the free hit against Leeds last week. I think Foden is worth the purchase as maybe a short-term acquisition. When we look beyond 2025 and going into January, maybe I'd have some reservations about this pick, but I think it could be a great option throughout the Christmas period. If you are on the market for a longer-term purchase, then I think Bruno Fernandes would be a more secure option throughout the entire season. Now, we do have a second half of the campaign where you can use a wildcard free hit triple captain bench boost, so you might even want to navigate things in such a way where you can have Fernandes for a few weeks, sell him, and then bring him back later, and you can do that in accordance to the fixtures and how they change. But Man United are another example of a team with promising fixtures on paper against West Ham at home, Wolves away, then Bournemouth and Newcastle home aren't too shabby, but Aston Villa away doesn't look particularly great, as the Villains are in great form right now. But Bruno Fernandes costs 8.9 million. His ownership is slowly rising to 17% at the moment. He got an assist against Crystal Palace in a 2-1 victory, and he got some bonus points in the process, with 2 goals and 5 assists in this Premier League campaign. The XGI is very healthy, so that means expected goal involvements combining the XG and the XA. It's 7.36, and that's 63 FPL points for the season. And he's currently in my own setup, and I've got a big decision to make when I do wildcard. Do I keep Bruno Fernandes or switch to Bryan Mbeumo, who'll be heading off to AFCON like many other players in Game Week 16 when every FPL manager is allocated 5 free transfers? But Bruno Fernandes has some very impressive underlying stats, like 31 shots, 9 on target, 16 shots inside the box. The XG specifically is 4.81 and the XA is 2.55. So There is a degree of overperformance when it comes to creativity, but 4 big chance created and 35 key passes is still very solid, especially when it comes to the chances created overall. And 6 big chances is obviously inflated by the penalties Bruno Fernandes has taken this season, and he has missed 2 of them. Otherwise, he'd be right up there when it comes to FPL points scored amongst midfielders. So I think Bruno Fernandes is a long-term purchase in the midfield, and he could be the perfect replacement for Antoine Semenyo. Igor Thiago was the flavour of the Gameweek 13 free hit, and for those wildcarding using free transfers, with that plum fixture against Burnley, he scored a brace and also helped Brentford win by a convincing scoreline. And the next fixture in particular isn't appealing against Arsenal away, where Igor Thiago is benchable, but he is still the most transferred in player, and I don't see that changing necessarily before the Gameweek 14 deadline. Afterwards is Tottenham away, and I think that could be a promising fixture for Brentford, as Tottenham sit near the bottom of the Premier League table when it comes to home matches. Then it's Leeds at home, Wolves away, and Bournemouth at home. And I think Igor Thiago is fixture-proof. He's on penalties, and he's another example of a player who rose in price overnight to 6.7 million. His ownership is continuously rising. It's currently at 22.2% with 11 goals for the season. He is the closest to Erling Haaland when it comes to the Golden Boot race. No assists, but that's completely fine because his underlying stats are very impressive with 18 big chances, 32 shots overall, 19 shots on target, and 30 shots inside the box. The XG is 8.57, so that's extremely healthy. Only 1 big chance created and 6 key passes, but what you get from Igor Thiago is a consistent goal scorer, and despite the penalty miss against Brighton in Gameweek 12, he is still very reliable when it comes to the penalty spot, and that's why he has a very respectable FPL points tally of 77 for the season. So I think Igor Thiago is worth purchasing in Gameweek 15, but for those that want to invest right now, I would reconsider because of the Arsenal fixture, and as a result, Igor Thiago is currently a hold in Fantasy Premier League. Mohamed Salah was benched in a 2-0 victory against West Ham and didn't feature whatsoever, which was a huge shock, I think. I know there was always this sort of talk or rumour of Salah being benched, and we saw that once in the Champions League, but to not feature at all was definitely a shock to me. He was on the free hit for many people, and that would have been a huge disappointment unless you got some pure bench jam. The next 2 fixtures look promising for Salah, but he'll probably head off to AFCON with Egypt by the time we get to Gameweek 16, when Liverpool play Brighton, Tottenham and Wolves. But the next 2 look promising against Sunderland and Leeds, and you would back Liverpool to win at least one of those matches and maybe remain unbeaten for a short period of time. But Salah only has 4 goals and 2 assists in this Premier League campaign. These numbers are way down to what he did at this stage of last season with 31 shots, 56 FPL points, and he went down in price very recently to 14.1 million. He has 10 shots on target, 26 shots inside the box. The XG is only 3.93 and the XA is 1.8 with 7 big chances, 5 big chance created, and 24 key passes. So the last 2 stats look pretty encouraging, but the rest is definitely not worth it when it comes to this sort of price tag. And Salah is not really the same player as he was last season, and Liverpool are also a shadow of what they showed when they became the Premier League champions. But I would still hold a bit of faith with Salah for the next 2 fixtures, but I wouldn't blame you whatsoever if you pulled the plug and spread those funds around. And that's why I was never too keen on this Salah and Haaland structure. But don't get me wrong, I thought Salah would have produced some returns by this point, and he played fairly well against Nottingham Forest in that 3-0 loss, and then of course he had that benching against West Ham. But I think Salah could be worth holding. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. Would you just sell him? Ultimately, by the time we get to Gameweek 16, Salah becomes a very clear sell, and I think it's just really a question of the next fixture or 2 and whether we can keep faith in Salah starting the game and making a significant impact in FPL. But Mohamed Salah is definitely teetering the line between a hold and a sell, and right now I would opt for the former. Many of the players covered up until this point of the video have changed in price overnight, and Daniel Munoz is yet another example. He now costs 6 million in FPL, but he's 1 yellow card away from suspension, because if a player gets 5 bookings within the first 19 matches of a Premier League season, they will miss a match, because that's just the way it works. It's been covered as well in previous seasons, but Munoz is still a quality FPL asset despite the blank against Manchester United, with 2 goals and 3 assists, 13 shots inside the box, which is very impressive for a defender, and 75 FPL points is nothing to be scoffed at. He is going to be the highest scoring option in this position alongside Jurrien Timber until the likes of Gabriel is back from injury. His ownership is also fairly template at 22.8%. The next fixture looks great, but will Crystal Palace rotate against Burnley? That is certainly a possibility because afterwards they have such a congested fixture schedule with Europa Conference League games. They've got a Carabao Cup clash towards the end of the month against Arsenal, and they face Fulham away in Game Week 15, followed by Man City at home, Leeds away, and Tottenham at home. So a great chance to rotate could be in Game Week 14. The same goes for Arsenal and Chelsea as two other prime examples where we could see massive rotation in midweek. And Munoz has 13 shots overall, 6 on target, 1.65 XG and 1.88 XA with 2 big chances, 3 big chance created and only 6 key passes. But Daniel Munoz offers so much attacking potential. He's a very exciting asset to own in the defensive line. And whilst you have Lacroix, who now costs 5.1 million for DEFCON, defensive contributions. The same goes for Mark Gay and a few other Crystal Palace defenders like Chris Richards. I think Daniel Munoz is the best of the lot and he'll score the most points in that position. In the previous Transfer Tips podcast, I talked about holding Moises Caicedo, and because of the fixtures being so difficult, I thought he would only gain more defensive contributions. Rotation against Leeds was possible, but that is irrelevant now because Moises Caicedo was sent off in that 1-1 draw against Arsenal, where he was on course to securing DEFCON. He was on 6 before the time he got sent off, and he is now going to miss 3 Premier League matches against Leeds, Bournemouth, and Everton. His return will be in Game Week 17 against Newcastle away, followed by Aston Villa at home, and Chelsea have some decent assets still like Enzo Fernandez, Joao Pedro and Robert Sanchez, but I think a lot of them are sells and they could be rotated in Game Week 14 against Leeds away. But Caicedo has 3 goals and 1 assist for the season. He is an absolute beast when it comes to DEFCON with 141 for the season and 58 FPL points. His price tag is 6 million and we should see that drop in the next week or so, and his ownership is 20.4%, but it is decreasing quite rapidly, and there's a good reason for that because he's missing so many matches. Now, his underlying numbers aren't great with 10 shots, only 4 on target, and 2 shots inside the box. The XG is only 0.57, but he is a quality finisher from outside the box, and the XA is 0.87 with 1 big chance created, and 6 key passes. But Caicedo always gets a lot of bookings and he makes some rash challenges, so red cards like the one he got against Arsenal are sometimes unavoidable, and unfortunately Caicedo will miss the next 3 matches. A great replacement for him would be Elliot Anderson, and I know some people talked about that last week and ultimately they were onto something there, but if Caicedo was available he would have been a decent hold for the next 5. That is no longer the case, so I'd definitely be looking to sell him in Game Week 14. Another key FPL asset who is suspended for Game Week 14 is Senesi, but this is only a 1-match ban. He will return for the Chelsea fixture in Game Week 15. He has 0 goals and 3 assists, 160 defensive contributions and 63 FPL points. There is certainly a case to hold Marcus Senesi, but the recent returns have not really been there because Bournemouth aren't keeping clean sheets and they've been quite inconsistent when it comes to performances, a clean sheet output and also the results, which haven't been good enough for the Cherries, particularly away from home. Senesi costs 5 million and he could offer good value against Burnley at home in Game Week 17, but you look at the Everton fixture, that would have been one of the more appealing games for Bournemouth and Senesi's going to miss that match. Then it's Chelsea at home and I don't think the Cherries will keep a clean sheet, and even against Man United away, and Bournemouth did very well against them last season, I still don't really back a clean sheet there, so you're relying on defensive contributions to bail you out, and Brentford away isn't exactly the best of fixtures, and Igor Thiago scores at will at the G-Tech Community Stadium. So I think Marcus Senesi could be a sell here, and you've got plenty of options like Chow from Newcastle. Maybe you want to go for a different option that I've discussed in my wildcard videos. Michael Keane has been looking very impressive, albeit there was a 4-1 loss there for the Toffees over the weekend, but I think there are alternatives in this defensive line, and maybe Senesi could be your cash cow for a Daniel Munoz, another Crystal Palace defender like Mark Gay, Jurrien Timber, and even Virgil van Dijk, who got 6 points against West Ham. But Senesi only has 3 shots for the season, 1 on target and 0 shots inside the box. The XG is only 0.15, but the XA is fairly decent at 1.69 with 0 big chances, 3 big chance created, and 11 key passes. But with Senesi, you're signing him or keeping him for the defensive contributions, but considering the next few fixtures and the 1-match suspension against Everton at home, I think the Argentine is a sell. Ismaila Sarr was forced off due to injury in the 38th minute in a 2-1 loss against Man United, and it was a collision with Diogo Dalot that caused the issue, and Oliver Glasner gave the following statement: "We all have to assess him further, but the ankle is quite swollen, so I think he'll miss a few games. Maybe we won't see him again before the African Cup of Nations." So that is a massive blow there for Crystal Palace. Sarr has also been fairly underwhelming in Fantasy Premier League with 3 goals and 1 assist. The XG is quite promising at 3.76 and 50 FPL points, but he has missed some big chances. The underlying stats always look very encouraging, but he has underperformed to a significant degree when it comes to the overall goal contributions and FPL output. His price tag is 6.7 million, but he is orange flagged with a 25% chance of playing, and that could soon be a red flag after the Gameweek 14 deadline. The next fixture is Burnley away, where Sarr could have been rested regardless for an Eddie Nketiah, who will replace him in the long term. With Fulham away, Man City at home, Leeds away, and Tottenham at home up next for Crystal Palace, but Sarr would have missed a few of those matches anyway because of the African Cup of Nations. Now, Sarr's underlying numbers are fairly decent, with 6 shots on target, 13 shots inside the box, and 16 shots overall. The XA is only 0.52, but 6 big chances, 2 big chance created, and 10 key passes is all decent. But I have to say, he hasn't been getting many big chances in recent matches. A lot of them came in the first few games of this season, and it has kind of tailed off since we have gotten to the sort of October stage, if you will. I think before that, Sarr was showing a lot of promise. Then he had an injury, missed a couple of weeks, and came back, and he scored against Liverpool, but I think Sarr has been a bit disappointing from an FPL perspective. But now it's possible that he misses the next 2 matches, and then he heads off to the African Cup of Nations between Gameweek 16 and 17. So Ismaila Sarr is a clear sell in Fantasy Premier League, and you could look at Enzo Fernandez, Declan Rice, Minter, and Bruno Guimaraes to replace the Senegalese forward in your FPL squads. Nick Pope offers the highest points per game amongst goalkeepers, and he's still on the podium for points scored in that position, but he could miss the next couple of matches due to a groin injury, and Aaron Ramsdale replaced him in a 4-1 win over Everton on Saturday. Now, Nick Pope has made 39 saves with 5 clean sheets, 3 bonus points, and 55 FPL points, only behind David Raya, who is second, and Roofs, who currently sits in top spot. And Pope does cost a reasonable fee at this moment in time, but I still don't think he is going to be worth keeping, because just like Alisson Becker, he is an injury-prone goalkeeper, and you can cover Newcastle defensively with Dan Burn and Chow, who is a massive differential. And my favourite goalkeeper in the long term is David Raya, and you can even look at cheaper alternatives like Verbruggen, Robert Sanchez, and maybe Petrovic, although I'm less keen on the Bournemouth goalkeeper at this moment in time. Now, Newcastle have some decent fixtures on paper, facing Tottenham, Burnley, Sunderland, Chelsea, and Man United. And if you look beyond that, they still have a good sort of run going into January. But Nick Pope is worth selling, in my opinion, and Aaron Ramsdale has done very well in his absence. We saw that in the Carabao Cup on several occasions, like the game against Tottenham, and that is their upcoming opponent. But Nick Pope has some decent underlying stats. If you look at the shots conceded, 134, only 13 goals conceded, 5 clean sheets. The expected clean sheets also matches that at 4.81, with 19 big chances conceded, and the XGC is 12.54. So Newcastle are solid defensively. They're certainly worth covering, but you can do so with Lewis Hall and Livramento, who are now available, and my favourites are Dan Burn and Chow from an FPL perspective. So Nick Pope is a sell. He could miss the next couple of games due to an injury, so Ramsdale could be a decent replacement for him. And Newcastle are one of the best defences in the Premier League, despite some disappointing results over the course of the season, but they're showing a bit more consistency now with back-to-back wins against Man City and Everton, and I think Nick Pope isn't really worth keeping in the long term. Despite their promising fixture against Leeds, I would avoid most Chelsea players. If you have the likes of Enzo Fernandez and Cucurella, you can certainly hold on to them, but I wouldn't be actively buying Chalobah, who scored against Arsenal, Cucurella, even Joao Pedro. I think a lot of them are kind of worth skipping for the next couple of weeks. On a wild card, I wouldn't mind Robert Sanchez, but even he isn't fully safe from rotation. We could see Jorgensen start in a game like this, or against Everton at home in Gameweek 16. But Cucurella has 0 goals and 2 assists, 3 big chances created, 56 FPL points, and 23.2% ownership. His price tag is 6.1 million, so he has been quietly going under the radar. He has 11 shots overall, with only 2 on target, 7 shots inside the box. The XG is 0.5, and the XA is at 1.62, with 0 big chances, 3 big chances created, and 18 key passes. But I think Marc Cucurella is worth skipping, and the same goes for Chalobah, who's getting a lot of attention after that goal from a set piece against Arsenal. And I think with Chelsea, they could massively rotate against Leeds midweek, and if that's not the case, that could be postponed until a fixture like Everton at home in Gameweek 16. So I wouldn't buy Marc Cucurella. Even Van Dijk would be higher ranked in terms of the defenders at a premium price tag, and both Timber and Daniel Munoz are currently the best options in that position. Having said that, you might be looking for a cheaper defender like Chow, who costs 4.9 million, and he has excellent long-term fixtures for the next month or so. And Chow got 2 goals against Everton, which was a huge shock. No assists for the season, but 3 big chances is impressive for a centre-back, and 46 FPL points. He has been very impressive since making his debut in a Newcastle shirt, and I could see 1 or 2 big returns from now until the end of the season, but nothing like what we saw against Everton. I think we should temper expectations with that, but he has a massive differential with 0.9% ownership, and that's why I would add him to the watch list. You're not going to get anything special when it comes to the underlying stats. 9 shots for the season, 4 on target, and 8 inside the box, but I have to say they're quite impressive for a centre-back. The XG is 1.16, the XA is 0.34, with 1 big chance created, 1 key pass, and over 80 defensive contributions. Chow will be nailed on in this Newcastle team despite all their options at centre-back, like Dan Burn, Botman, and also Fabian Schär. They've got a lot of depth in that position, but Chow is going to be one of the first names on the team sheet, especially if he continues to perform at this level. And if you are looking for a differential or a mid-price defender to replace Marcus Senesi, I think Chow should be near the top of the list, even against Tottenham at home in Gameweek 14. The most transferred out players for Gameweek 14 include Marcus Senesi, Caicedo, Gabriel and Sarr, so 2 of them are suspended and the other 2 are injured. Joao Pedro is also in this top 5 list with Semenyo, Van der Ven, Salah, Mbumo, Ekitike, Grealish, Pope, and other names that I've covered in previous Transfer Tips podcasts also right up there. But I think a few of them could be holds, like Brian Mbumo, until Gameweek 16, and then we can sell the Cameroonian and go to Bruno Fernandes as one notable example. Thank you very much for watching this video and this podcast. If you enjoyed it or found it insightful, then like this video, subscribe to my channel, and also hit that notification bell so you're always up to date on my content, both FPL and UCL Fantasy, which I'll cover until the end of the season. Let's get this video to over 150 likes and closing on new goals like 38k on YouTube. Follow me on X, Instagram and Blue Sky, Dylan RCM, and check all the links in the description for my Patreon and the championships, fair likes to my videos, proud to add to comments amongst many other perks. My Discord server, BFPL League and Spotify can also be found in the description. I'll see you tomorrow for the next deadline stream, and keep your eyes peeled for the best wildcard squad and my team selection.